Well, hey guys, welcome to my kitchen. It's kind of a chilly day outside, so to my mind it's a perfect day to make a good big old beef roast, and that's what we're going to do. I've got about a 3 pounder, 3.5 pounds to cook up, so let's jump right into the action. I'll show you how I do it. Okay, for this I've got my big pot out, and I've got it 3/4 filled with water, and I'm going to bring that to a boil, and I'll show you the meat. I've got it's a 3 pound roast here, and it's still a little bit frozen. That's okay, we're going to cook it in the boiling water for a long time, so it should be good. The nice thing about this meat is, too, we get this from a local farmer, and it's butchered locally, so we do know everything's fresh, and that makes it nice. Now, a lot of people like to use a crock pot, and that's good too, a nice slow cooker, but when you're using these big pieces of roast, I just don't have one that would hold it, so I gotta make do. And you always want to keep in mind too, when you're cooking beef, I like to make sure that the internal temperature gets up about 170 degrees, and to check that, of course, I use one of these where you just stick it in the meat. I like to get it up to 170 right there. This will be on the heat now for a couple hours, so it definitely is going to be way over that. So next we got to start adding some ingredients. Okay, so first thing I'm going to get in there is the carrots, because we want those to get nice and soft. Now I've got some here that I've peeled and I've cut off the tops and bottoms. I'm just going to cut them into chunks. About this size looks about right. You can never have too many carrots in there. Now, one thing you'll notice I'm not putting in that I really miss is potatoes. Obviously, if you're going to do this, you're going to want to put in some potatoes. Peel them, cut them up, and put them in. My wife and I are dieting, trying to lose weight. She won't let me put in any potatoes. So, I do miss them, but that's alright. I guess I can live without it. Well, a lot of people like to use canned vegetables, and I suppose they're just as good. And saves you going through all the work. But these are just some carrots I had on hand because I am using them in my juicing machine for making up some good juice. So I had a bunch of fresh ones on hand. I thought I'd just use them. But the canned ones work good too. Now, next part is to add some onion, and I'm going to use one of these big old sweet onions. I really like them. And this is how it looks when we start, of course. We're going to cut off the top. Cut off the bottom. I'm going to cut it over here like that. Move that out of your way. I take the outside ring, just get rid of that. And we'll cut this up in about 4 pieces, and then I just take these and cut them in half. So you're going to have 8 chunks when you're done, and then you can just they'll come right apart for you, if you can see there. And we'll just add those to our soup. And we want to do that kind of early on, because ideally we want them to be almost see-through and soft, and it takes a little while. Okay, now I'm going to add some celery. So I've washed these already, but I like to cut off the whitish looking parts here. And I always make a point to cut off the tops too. Just put those aside. And now you'll notice I've changed up knives. This is not serrated like what I was using for the carrots, and it does a lot nicer job when you're wanting to cut stuff a little finer. You can see it's going right through the celery like nothing. Now you do want to fight the urge that when you're going really fast here, you don't want to do too fast. You don't want to let your finger get too close, because sometimes you'll hit one of these pieces and it'll knock your knife over just enough to nick your finger. So if you're using a good sharp knife, definitely want to make sure you're not going too fast. And for some of my final ingredients, I like to add a can or 2 of mushrooms. Just any brand will do you. I usually drain the water out, and I'll just pop those in. Now my last ingredient, of course a lot of people like to put in some garlic, different things like that, so you have to season it to however your taste is. But I like to add in a little bit of this Weiler's beef. I like the granules, not the cubes. The cubes work, but the granules seem like they dissolve a lot quicker, and they're just easier to work with to me. And I use them for all kinds of things, so that's why I got in hand. But I'll put in about 3 tablespoons or so in there. And of course that'll boil in, give the meat some really good flavor. Of course it gives the gravy a nice brown color. And my mom would make beef vegetable. You know, this is the point where you can decide if you want to make a soup for the day. You can make a beef vegetable soup with what you got in here. Maybe add in some corn. Like I say, I would definitely add potatoes if it was up to me. But can't do that for the diet, but some corn would be good in there. And so then you would serve it with a nice brown gravy that you can see here. So we're just going to let this keep on simmering away. Like I say, the longer you can let it simmer, the more tender your meat is. So this isn't one that's a quick recipe, but it is easy, and it is really tasty. So we're going to let that simmer a while more. Alright, now for spices, I'll show you. First I'm going to put in some basil. Bunch of good shakes here. I like a little bit of oregano. Just pop some of that in there. Of course you gotta have a little bit of black pepper. This is kind of coarse. And then instead of salt, I like to add a bunch of soy sauce. It gives it a nice color and gives it plenty of the salty flavor. Now this is decision time. You could go ahead and cut your roast up and make a nice stew out of it. You would just thicken the juice that you have in there already. To thicken it, I would use some cornstarch. What you would do is put the cornstarch into a little bowl and add a little bit of cold water, stir it up, then add it to your hot, and that'll thicken it right up for you. But today, the family kind of voted for, and I'm going to do a stew video one day, but today we voted just to have just some roast meat with some vegetables on the side. So that's what we're doing here. This is what the meat's looking like so far. You can see, well, if I didn't drop it, let's see if I can get it back up here. You can see the meat's already coming away from the bone. See that? See how the meat's already pulled away from the bone? When we started, it was right level with it. That's looking good, and that's just telling you that the meat is nice and tender. While I got it up here, I think I'll stick my thermometer in. Give it a second. And, yep, the meat is, right now it's about 190 degrees or so, so it's almost like it's assumed the temperature to boiling water pretty much. And it's looking good, smelling good. Of course, all I can do is tell you about the smell, but it's smelling really good. That's the hard part's waiting. But yeah, the longer you can let the meat kind of sit in the hot water, simmering, the more tender it's going to be. Okay, so our soup, our beef, our roast I should say, has been simmering along for, it's been about 3 hours now, and the meat has come right off of the bone pretty much. So I take this opportunity to go ahead, scoop the bones out, and then any of the big fat chunks that you can see that are obvious, that are coming loose, now's a good time to just take them right off. And we're gonna probably take it out, put it on a plate, and see if there's anything more we can trim off of it so it looks nice. Sure is smelling good though. But when you see your meat starting to come right off of the bone, you know you're going to have it nice and tender, and it's probably pretty well done. Okay, so here's a piece of our roast. You can see it's got some of the fat there, so I'll just take a sharp knife here, and well, you can see how the meat's just falling apart too. That means it's good and done. I'm just going to clean it up, see? It's not going to be perfect, but you'll want to save those scraps, of course, for your dog. That looks like a nice piece of meat right there. So I'll do the rest of them, and we'll put in the final dish. Okay, so here you see the finished product. Like I said, of course, it would look better with some chopped up potatoes in there, but that's how it is when you're married. Sometimes you gotta make concessions, and we both are trying to lose weight and trying to stay away from potatoes for the moment. So this is the finished product. The beef's been cleaned up a little, so it looks nice, and got plenty of vegetables that go with it. So give it a try sometime. I think you'll like it. Like I say, cook time is about 3.5 hours. You want to make sure you get that beef nice and tender, so it's just falling off the bone. And so it does take a little bit of time, but I think it's well worth it. So Till next time, thanks so much for watching.